City, I will do beans, I will do stewed beans, collard greens, and cornbread. And I don't think that there's anything that you can't get anywhere. However, the one thing that I can't find, especially here in New York City, is white cornmeal. So when you're doing hot water cornbread, and I can't find white cornmeal. So I would like to be able to find white cornmeal everywhere.
I love that. I would love white cornmeal in Grand Forks.
Have you ever heard of hot water cornbread?
No.
I knew that.
Do you use hot water in it?
Yeah, so hot water cornbread is something that Southerners know, and I think that it is a derivative of fufu, maybe coming from West Africa, with cassava pounded, and then they would add hot water to it, and they would eat that as mush as a vehicle to eat their stew. But when you got to the South, that wasn't available, so they used white cornmeal, and they added hot water to it, and then some fat, and then you fry it, and so you eat that with beans.
What kind of fat? Butter?
No, like lard or just canola oil. I'd use vegetable oil in mine, and I use a shortening.
Let's talk about different fats.
Yes. Oh,
I just got really excited about different fats.
it's all about the fat.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's your favorite fat right now?
Well, my thighs. Just kidding. JK. I think my favorite fat right now is a mixture of lard and butter.
Ooh.
I read an article recently.
Kosher. It's kosher.
I read an article recently telling me not to be afraid of shortening. What do you think of that?
Well, what else did the article say?
It just said that it's not that bad.
I gotta read the article.
This is how this writer makes her pie crust, and
Right.
it's the best pie crust. And the pie crust discussion is something that has always terrified me. And so it took me until last year to make my own pie crust. But I mean, I love butter. I love Kernel butter. But I love.
Right? I have 2 pounds in my fridge right now.
Oh my gosh, that's what you put on hot hollow when it comes out of the oven. That is, I could live on that. But tell me if I'm correct in this, but I see that a lot of people are giving themselves a break in the kitchen in terms of, maybe not putting so much pressure on themselves to cook such complicated things and use older staples like shortening, maybe going back to creamed soup. And I've seen a few articles recently. There was an article by J.J. Good in Taste Cooking about how he has 2 identities in the kitchen, the one who wants to make the very fancy 3-course supper and the one who has a daughter yelling at him not to get any garlic in her tomato sauce. And which one wins? And so I recently was won over by Melissa Clark's salt and pepper chicken, which is salt and pepper on a roast chicken. And so I don't know. I kind of feel like we're recovering from an age of too muchery.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
I agree.
I think, I think, and we had spoken about your photos that are going to be in your next book, about how they're not as contrived, they're less styled maybe, and we're coming out of this age of Instagrammable food and those crazy milkshakes with the burgers coming out of them.
Yes.
What do you think of that?
Whenever I'm doing a cookbook, I think about where you're going to be able to get the ingredients, how many pots and pans it will take to get that dish done, and if I can take one away, I do, because I'm also thinking about the cleaning up and the dishes afterwards, and your entire time to do that dish.
Sheet pan suppers.
Right?
One pot meals.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So I feel that if you want to do, which is exactly what my book is about, if you want to do that celebration meal, and that is going to be once a month, and for some people maybe it is going to be once a week, for some people it is going to be twice a year, you should have that available to you. But most people want to get dinner on the table and feel good about it in about 30 minutes. And I think that's where the everyday recipes come.
Yeah.
And so I feel like there is a place for all of it. It is not about or, it is about and. So I'm all about the and.
Choosing battles and having the Sunday big supper and then, maybe the Monday night pasta with tomato sauce.
Yeah, exactly.
Or
exactly.
toast.
I think so.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Okay. So, for both of you, really. So, we're in this incredible moment of appreciation of multiple cultures. How do you think that affects what people might want to eat and what you might want to be showing people what to eat?
I think we're living in such a cool time right now where we can order anything on Amazon Prime. I live in the middle of nowhere on a farm, and my pantry is filled with za'atar and sumac and harissa and all of these things that I can order on the internet. I have good tahini, and we have, for the first time in history, we have access to so many different flavors from all over the world, and we can paint with so many more colors than than our older generations could. And so I love seeing new. You know what I love? I love that ingredients are being invented. They're not just being discovered by traveling, and they're not just being, brought back from Europe in an empty suitcase. I bring back all my marzipan from
Like
Germany.
the Impossible Burger, is that what you're saying?
Yes, the Impossible Burger, aquafaba. I think that we have only hit the tip of the iceberg with these new ingredients and these new foods. I see the Impossible Burger turning into like a ground beef substitute product. I see bacon being the next victim of becoming something that has been veganized. I think that the idea of turning cauliflower into pizza crust, that's actually good. And I had one good one.
Okay.
I'll make you my good one.
Okay.
But I just feel like at this point, 20 years ago, in order to vegetarianize something, we had tofu. And now we have beans. We have
Yay!
I don't know what's in the Impossible Burger, but we have that, and we have all these different technologies to make foods that we crave and comfort foods out of healthier ingredients, vegetable-based ingredients, and I think we're just going to continue down that path.
Yeah, and I think also, and to that point, ingredients that you didn't know about. For instance, sorghum grains, millet, all of these different grains that are available now that weren't as readily available years ago. So I can do the book, my soul food book today, a book that I couldn't do 5 years ago.
That's fascinating.
And I think that for me, because I have fallen in love with this food again, and I really want to broaden the idea of what soul food is, and feeling very proud, because most people will say, oh, well, soul food is fried chicken and greens and mac and cheese and smothered pork chops and candied yams, but it's more than that. Because I think with every cuisine, they have celebration foods, and usually there are people outside of that cuisine who are coming to the table. So you think you're very limited to what that food is, and I think you're thinking about the celebration foods.
There almost has to be like an ambassador of the foods to have an entry point.
Yes.
What are
Yes.
some dishes that are in your next book that are an entry point you feel for, or maybe some dishes that anchor the book?
Well, I think that there's one. It's a chunky tomato soup with roasted okra, which I took the idea of stewed okra and tomato, but it is lighter, but you still have the taste and the flavor of those things, and you roast the okra, and when you take that roasted okra and you put it into that brothy tomato soup, it permeates the broth immediately. So if you don't like okra, you don't like the slime, you would still like this, but it still feels like stewed tomato and okra.
And so is this a method, is this a traditional way of preparing it, or this is something that you
It's something that I sort of re-envisioned, because I kept asking myself, if my ancestors came over today from West Africa, what would they be eating? How would they be eating? And that is the energy that I put and the intention that I put into the book, because we do have a very different lifestyle. And so a lot of times, but I don't want to chuck all of the history and everything that we have done for this, let's order all of these different things. I really think that African Americans should understand our food, and they should understand that soul food is our cuisine, like Korean food or Chinese food or French food or um, Italian food, whatever, right? But then once you know it, you can go off and explore it and then sort of change things around.
I'm so excited.
What do you both think about this? You're talking about the traditional reinventing of a traditional food. Just makes me wonder what you each think about this tension between adherence to tradition and the awful A word, authenticity, but then a compulsion to want to re-envision, make things feel modern. Do you feel the tension in your work between those two things?
I mean, I'll add sprinkles to challah any day. And I mean, for me, it's just, it is important to know what traditional Jewish food and what traditional Chinese food is, and to learn about that, and to, you know, in anything. I think in music school, we had to learn music history. For food, it's really important to learn food history and to learn where all these dishes came from. But my gosh, like, I just love trying new things and experimenting and stuff. And so I never ever want to feel, you know,
Right.
bogged down. And if something doesn't work, it doesn't work. But if it tastes good, like, why not?
Yeah.
Right, well, exactly, but I think that if you have the basics, if you have the classic thing, then you can go outside the line.
Yeah.
But if you did away with, if nobody is teaching the classics, then you can't come back to them. For instance, I tell you, Jacques, what I want you to go, where I want you to go and teach the people. Oh, not to put you on the spot, but, okay, your mic is off. But soft scrambled eggs.
The best.
You
best.
cannot go and get a soft scrambled eggs at most places,
Right.
and it is so infuriating.
Right.
I just tried 2 days ago.
You have to know the rules to break the rules, right? That's
Right,
it.
you have to know the rules to break
Yeah,
the rules.
yeah. Well, you guys are amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come back to the jury. Our next witnesses. I call to the stand. We have Letty Teague, who is a incredibly accomplished and respected wine journalist for the Wall Street Journal, multiple award winner. And we have Natalka Burian, who is a bar owner and author. And they are going to talk about drinking. One of my favorite topics.
It's about time.
My favorite topic.
No, right? We were saying we should have gone first because everyone wants to drink before they get started.
And yet everyone's drinking water, which is rather sad.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Here comes some booze.
Oh, we are. Oh, thank goodness. Oh,
Here's
oh no,
the
I meant the
booze.
audience, not us. That would be very selfish. No. I feel like the first beverage we should talk about is beer, right?
I guess so.
No. Actually, which
I like beer. Oh, sorry.
Do you like beer?
Listen,
I'm just saying. Actually, I don't like beer. I don't drink beer. If you read my column, I never write about it either, and that's because. And you know what? Just coincidentally, and you can talk about this, Natalka. We don't have to keep to beer, but I saw beer sales are falling and have been falling for quite some time. And I saw in your bar, you don't do much beer business, right?
we don't do a lot of beer. I think, I think it is, there are people who love their beer, and there are people who, I feel like the artisanal movement, like the craft beer making is
There
really...
just keep being more and more breweries. People are building
Yes.
breweries. There's such a growth. I was reading, they keep building them. And actually, I was on the North Fork of Long Island, and more wineries are starting breweries, which is
That's interesting. I didn't know
disconcerting.
that. I didn't know about the winery starting brewery.
Right,
Did you
wow.
get to try?
No, because again, I don't like beer. But if
No,
that's a
I
trend
think
or
that
not.
there are some beers, like there are sour beers I know that are very popular right now.
Yeah.
I think there's certainly a saturated market of these kind of craft breweries, but I don't see them declining too much. I think
Right.
people will always like beer.
I suppose, I mean, statistically, but, well, of course, you are all about empowering, I love this, the idea of empowering people to drink cocktails, which the whole idea that you need to be empowered to drink is such a foreign concept to me. It's like, there's the bottle of wine, there